again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting 2021 episode of the Jim Cornette Experience, folks, where the world is upside down. The network has flown the coop to Peacock. AEW has the best wrestling match of the week. Fatback wants to sue Mark Henry for inflammation of character. And another area of Chris Jericho is inflamed by our review last week. To join me in this and so much more, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you. He's the Siskel to my Ebert, the Rogers to my Hammerstein, the moons over my hammy, your friend and mine, the great Brian Last.
Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here once again. And I just real quick here at the top of the show want to give my heartfelt thanks to Chris Jericho. Thank you on behalf of me and my family for providing content that helps me pay my bills.
You were almost out. That foreclosure notice, the eviction notice, was tacked up on the door. The wolf was at the door. The winds were howling. It ain't a fit night out for man or beast. You and all the little kitties there. You had the kitties all bundled up in their threadbare blankets, and they were wrapped up in their shoes with no soles, and they were ready to walk out into the cold, cruel world. And Chris Jericho liked your tweet, or gave you the beneficence of his presence and his acknowledgement, and suddenly the world turned.
It was all over, and then Chris signed with AEW, and now I'm worth $1 gajillion, allegedly.
You had pretty much all the jillions a few years ago that you have now. I haven't seen a significant fucking increase since Chris Jericho signed with AEW, but that's just my observation. Anyway, I'll tell you what the goddamn problem is. You said a pleasure to be here. It's more like a miracle to be here. We're late again. Yet the multi-million-dollar recording studio that you're building there at Last Jam Records, there was a glitch in the matrix, a bug in the system. You might need to call, instead of all of these technical assistants and everything that you're bringing in, the engineers, you might need to call A1 Pest Control, because you got a lot of bugs over there. And you know what? And you had to have Kippelman come in and figure the thing out again. And now I'm fully aware that he is probably right now sitting on the couch over there, watching the proceedings, maybe eating some popcorn. But if it hadn't been for Kippelman, your slick shaved balls, courtesy of our Manscaped products, would have been in hot water. Because once again, we were off the air. Kippelman can hear me, right? But Kippelman can't speak because he's under your desk holding a flathead screwdriver in the back of the computer so that the thing will record, right?
He's sitting on the couch while I hold this dog's head and you do your business.
Yeah, actually, that was a thing, just as I digress, as I normally do. In Smoky Mountain Wrestling, when we did the early days of the post-production of the show at Tennessee Production Center down there on Chapman Highway, and we were mastering on 1-inch reels 15 years or so after that stopped being a thing, they had one machine to make the edits lock when we were putting a show together, where they had to synchronize the two reels, the reel we were recording off of and the reel we were recording onto, to make the edits, right? A guy actually had to take the side off the machine, take a flathead screwdriver, and hold it in somewhere for those fucking edits to lock, for us to put the TV show together. I'm sitting there going, oh, fucking. Anyway, Kippelman, he can hear me, but he can't speak because he's under the desk, right?
No, Lou Kippelman's not under my desk, no.
But, well, he's back there. He can't speak. He can hear me, but he can't speak. I've got him where I want him. Kippelman, I've been wanting to tell you this for a long time. Your daddy was a drunk, and your mama was a hoochie-coochie dancer. Your aunt smells like elderberry wine, and I fart in your general direction. I challenge you to a technical fisticuffs fight with my man, Hotchkiss Featherbottom. Because Hotchkiss has got things running around here at this end of this fucking empire just like a well-oiled Swiss watch.
Oh, yeah.
I tried to put oil in my watch one time, and it fucked it up.
Oh, yeah.
But Hotchkiss has things running good, and it's Kippelman up there on that end.
You don't know how to work a smartphone.
I don't have to. Hotchkiss does. See, Hotchkiss has got all my shit. I'm right here. Where are you? You've gone too far now. That used to be the fucking, when guys would get in a fight, somebody'd say, well, you've gone too far. Well, I'm right here. Well, I'm right here too. And they would, that way they would wait until people got in between them so they could still be there but not have to fight. Anyway, all right, we're going to do a program today, right? Kippelman out from under the desk. Are we back on YouTube?
I assume so.
I heard something like that. We might have even been back a few minutes beforehand. You never know.
You never know.
But that's why you should listen to the podcast as a podcast instead of relying on YouTube for everything. You miss a lot of incisive commentary. There's a big update in my life. We are headed into February now. And as I've mentioned, we were going to reopen the store at JimCornette.com, the Cornette's Collectible store, in the middle of February after we'd restocked and taken our break. However, an amazing bulletin has just come through, and I've spoken to the higher uppity-ups at the toy company who informed me that the Jim Cornette action figures this time are now ahead of schedule and will be coming in sometime in the first part of March. And this is, everybody remembers the Christmas variant that took a year and a half, and I put it on sale last summer. That's what fried my website and broke the internet. We went off the air for a while, folks, and we sold 400 in an hour and 15 minutes when we did come back. And as well, we're going to be restocked with the original figure, the classic yellow and red, which has not been on sale in, I believe, from me a year and a half because of the time it's taken to get these things. You know, they come from China, and these 5, 6, 7-year-old kids do not have the work ethic that they had back in my day. But I pitched a fit, and I said, even if we have to, eat the cost, we've got to, raise these people's salaries, and you'll be amazed what 10 cents a day, what kind of motivation that puts in the heart of an ambitious young entrepreneur. But anyway, I've got so many other things that we're trying to work on, and I'm not saying that as blather, we're still busy here. So we're thinking about going ahead and leaving the store down for the month of February. We get the figures in. I will have an exact date for launch in the next week or two, and we will open up with everything then. Hotchkiss has already fixed out the server space. We're not going to blow it up and go off the air anymore. By the way, I had mentioned quite a while back in the fall, a new JimCornette.com and new entire website. That's going to be happening this year. New store, new website. The first guy I was talking to, he had to testify at a mob trial, and it was suggested by the government that he entered the witness protection program for a period of time. So I can't wait 3 to 6 years. So we're going ahead, but there's going to be, in the year 2021, a new JimCornette.com with a brand new store. We're already upgrading the server space for the on sale of the long-awaited action figures in March. Still working on the Cameo project. We may be able to get a trial run of cameos in before the store opens with the action figures in March, because I'm not just going to jump into the Cameo thing having never done something before in my life and suddenly say, okay, we're just doing it. So we're going to do a limited number on sale of those. And we got some other projects, including a new publication and a couple more miscellaneous projects for 2021. So I'm not just sitting around on the couch watching Kippelman eat popcorn. I'm getting things done around here. Some people think I just laze about.
Who thinks that?
They just think that I'm just a lazy person because I stay home, but I'm busy at home. Somebody wrote and asked me if I was going to wrote and asked me. I guess I should say emailed like they do these days, and asked me if I was going to do an event this year that I guess is hopefully is being scheduled in a hopeful manner that it's going to be able to go on. And normally I would want to do this thing. But for anybody that's asked, I do not see myself not only not doing a live event, but even being comfortable around anyone in public in the year 2021. So that's not going to take place. I'm not saying ever again, but I cannot imagine myself, except for all of the death and financial crisis and sickness and misery and mismanagement of the whole pandemic caused by stupid people being in charge. Trying to look on a positive side. I think I've told you this, Brian. I've had the most regular sleep I've ever had in my life this past year. Think about this. For 40 years more, I've been on the road with wrestling shows and blah, 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 where sometimes, you might be worn out and you might sleep 12 hours and then you might be off. And especially in the 80s when we were doing the TV tapings on Saturday mornings, double shots on Sunday, you might get 3 hours of sleep a night, 3 nights in a row. And even with these trips I've been making recently, right? It's binge sleeping and then you don't sleep. No hotels, no long drives, no fast food binges that I've had. My weight has varied plus or minus 5 pounds over the last year. I'd talk about gaining 7 or 8 pounds on a week-long trip. So I've been healthier by staying away from other human beings. And also I feel safer because, as we mentioned earlier, not to kick us off YouTube again, but just the statistics are that basically 1 out of 3 or 4 people that you see is a lunatic that you don't want to be anywhere around. So, you know what I'm going to do, Brian? Now's where you say, what's that, Jim?
I have no idea what you're going to do, Jim.
What you're telling the truth also, because
I am.
You have no idea what I'm doing. I am not ever going to go anywhere again. I'm going to have paintings made of me in that place that I can hang up on the wall. That's exactly because it's healthier and it's cheaper. And you will love it, folks, if you go to the folks that paint your life, because they can even paint a life that you wish you had. I'm telling you, think about this now. Why would you not? They can take pictures, photographs of multiple people in your life or places or pets or whatever, and they can either reproduce them as a hand-painted portrait from a world-class artist, or they can combine them so you've got different family members that weren't in the same place at the same time together in the picture, generations, the whole 9 yards. Why couldn't I just have pictures painted of me in front of places that I'd like to have gone and save the time and the money and the health risk of going there? And then I wouldn't have to speak to anybody. It's whatever your fantasy is, folks. Whatever your fantasy is about your life, Paint Your Life can paint it. And if you go to paintyourlife.com, then you can see all the information and get a team of world-class artists to work with you and get your portrait out as a birthday gift, anniversary gift, wedding gift, or just something that you like. And if you text the word drive, D-R-I-V-E, to 64,000. That's 64000. Text drive, D-R-I-V-E, to 64000. Then you will get 20% off and free shipping on the portrait. At paintyourlife.com, there's no risk. If you don't love the final painting, your money is refunded, guaranteed. And as I mentioned, if you text drive to 64,000, you can get 20% off and free shipping. Terms apply. Available at paintyourlife.com/terms.
Chris Jericho can get one. Get a painting when he still had a neck.
Maybe, you know what? I think that's probably where they got that painting of Callus and Twinkle Toes with the abs and everything.
Wouldn't that be funny if they got that using your promo code?
They probably did. They wanted to save the 20% off. I'm thinking now that they should Paint Your Life should open a special department for all of the people in AEW that want to relive their former glory and either paint what they used to look like or what they think they used to look like. Anyway, I got an update. It's not on Mantar. Calm down. Slow down, cowboy. But it is an update on somebody we've been talking about. Our friend Bruiser Bedlam. I got an email, and I won't mention this person's name or where they're from or anything, and I won't even read all of the email because it's somebody that used to know Johnny K9. He calls him my lifelong friend, and he says enough things that I believe him. So I won't read a lot of the things that actually would just convict a motherfucker in open court of crimes. However, there were a few entertaining pieces that I thought that we would mention also, because he sent me a list of just anecdotes of his time knowing Bruiser. And he had so many names, and most of them were wrestling. It's not like he, had aliases. And I assume he had some aliases that way also. But he wrestled as Johnny K9. I named him Brusier Bedlam. His real name was Ian. But most people that knew him call him Johnny, right? This is one of them. John used his bald head to smash a car window while nude of some dude that was dating his ex-wife Sheila. Did you? Don't know why.
Why was he nude?
I don't know why. Maybe he came out of the house. I'm not. He just didn't think. I don't know. But that would be dangerous to have that much broken glass around. Anyway. Did you know Missing Link? Dewey Robertson was the one that got him into wrestling, and the Bad Boys Gym in Burlington that Bruiser always had. That's why all of the Smoky Mountain guys, like 94, 95, had those Bad Boys Gym T-shirts on, because Bruiser would bring them down and give them the guys. It was his gym, and apparently he bought it from the Missing Link. I did not know that. So that's he could bench press 600 pounds when he was 21. His max was 650, and he could do 625 twice in a row. Remember, I said when we went to the gym that day to shoot that promo for him and Randy Savage in Knoxville, that he started warming up just a time or two with like 5 something, because we were running late, right? Here's a story of him in Subway. A Subway restaurant employee asked him asked him to out his shirt on. Basically, put his shirt on. I'm sorry. Asked him to put his shirt on and refused him service. So John got up and escorted everyone out and locked the door. And at the threat of pulling the guy's eye out and making him a cyclops, had him make a sub sandwich for us, which he paid for and then tipped $100 as people waited to get in outside. He told the young guy, buy a couple of these geeks a sub, and then left. So at least he didn't steal the sub. And he also says the Hells Angels never took Johnny out because he was so high profile, his antics kept the heat off of them, although he thoroughly hated them. But he single-handedly made the Hells Angels popular, I guess.
What did he do? He tried to bomb a police station, right?
Well, there's something about that. All right.
He's dead. I mean, we could say it.
Well, and actually, there's going to be, this has actually been revealed, I think, now. One of the episodes of Dark Side of the Ring this year on Vice is going to be on Bruiser, and it was at my suggestion. And now that I'm hearing back from him that it may be one of the highlight episodes of the season. But his second wife, Tracy's best friend, was living with the mad bomber, Jerry, that actually made the bombs for the Sudbury, Ontario police station John ordered be bombed, is according to this totally unsolicited email.
The mad bomber?
Stephen P. News. Well, there's also, there is a claim that he's the one who orchestrated the assassin. Are you an assassin, Kabuki? Are you an errand boy? The assassin or let's say the cleanup man to take care of the situation with the lawyer and her husband, who was going to testify against a former mob boss or whatever. But Bruiser was arrested, but he got acquitted and actually sued the cops on that and was successful enough in that, I believe. But anyway, well, there you go.
No, there has to be more. Come on, there has to be more stuff.
He lost 2 toes on one of his feet when he was riding his motorcycle in sandals and a pair of gym shorts when he was hit in a Corvette by a woman, but he never came after her because she was attractive. Let's see, and Yeah. Well, I don't understand this line. I think it maybe there's the typing is off here. It says fought Aryan as the leader in Canada's roughest prison. But I don't think you don't fight I think it's fought Aryans. Is what that's supposed to be, because I don't think you go into prison. Okay, I'm going to fight Aryan. Okay, I'm going to fight Crip or Blood or whatever. Right? I'm not sure what that terminology is there. And apparently, just while we're at it, Bruiser's father may have been connected to a doctor from Ontario that was accused of being a Romanian Nazi. But we don't know anything about that.
Every time we talk about Bruiser Bedlam, I always have to say this. Met him when I was 14. Really nice guy.
Yeah, nicest guy. That is what this program. I told them. I said, I want you to get to the bottom of this. How everybody in my life that has ever met this guy is like, oh, what a great fucking guy. And you hear these other things from his other life, and I'm trying to get him to reconcile those, and we haven't got to the root of the matter yet. But anyway, some other people need to be reconciled, apparently. Did I hear this correctly? Is our friend Fatback suing Mark Henry for the things that Mark said about the stupid things that Fatback said?
I don't know if he's suing him. I saw that he sent out a tweet where he threatened to, or I guess he said he was going to contact his lawyers about Mark Henry, the show Mark Henry was on, and I think he was also saying that WWE was behind the whole thing.
What about me? I feel left out. I said he was as big a piece of shit as Mark did, didn't I?
You did, and
I've never been so slighted. Jesus Christ! And for the benefit of the listeners, the way it happened was briefly. Old Fatback gets on Twitter in response to basically some fan question about who was the greatest wrestler ever not to be the WWE champion or whatever, something like that. And I guess somebody mentioned him, and he went on a tirade about how wrestling's all fake. The belts are just props given to entertainers, and nobody wins anything. So, like he's ass chapped and butthurt that he was too reckless of a fucking meathead short-term attraction. They decided they didn't want to put the fucking belt on him, so now he just diminishes everything in wrestling and calls it all fake and bullshit at the same time. So, and of course, we jumped on that. You can find the clip on YouTube, but Mark Henry got on him as well. And now he says what the fuck? I feel that I did as thorough a job as anybody possibly could have of telling him what a piece of shit he was and how a disrespectful fuckwit he was. And that nobody wanted to fucking see him as world champion or whatever the fuck. And he would have been kicked out of the business 30 years ago. But I get no respect at all by even threatening. He knows, you know what he knows, don't you? He knows that he would be coming up the wrong side of Stephen P. News' driveway in that case. That's probably the thing. I feel it's demeaning not to be threatened with a lawsuit when you feel like you did a good job of something.
I have the tweet here. It was a tweet that he sent out on January 25th. Going to be speaking with my attorney concerning my options for the recent WWE Mark Henry busted open radio situation of outright slander. Luckily, enough people know me to know the truth, but can't sit back and allow WWE to further do this. Thanks for the support. That's always my favorite move, too, by the way. Not, oh yeah, I'm suing you. I'm going to talk to my lawyers about doing something. Just do something and shut up.
Well, but besides that, and then, oh yeah, thanks for your support. But what does the WWE have to do with what Mark Henry said? He wasn't saying, and the WWE feels this way. He said, no, I think this. And then didn't Fatback offer to fight Mark? Well, and Mark said pretty much, come on.
Well, reading between the back knee, I think, based on other things I've seen, that Ryback is of the opinion that WWE is behind it. Like, WWE has a concerted campaign to disparage Ryback. Apparently, here's another tweet that he deleted on January 18th. he tweeted this and he deleted it. I'm also going to say this. Mark Henry was asleep in Gorilla prior to our WrestleMania match. A producer came over to me and said, "Good luck working with that fat piece of shit." Mark didn't want to spend a lot of time coming up with a good match, and we got what we got. #facts. And then he deleted that tweet.
Well, I'm not surprised. So he's trying to say that he got what they got because he, instead of Mark Henry, who's been a professional for 20 fucking years. Oh, for God's sake. That's the thing, is that this guy obviously has an inflated opinion of his legendary status in the wrestling business for the teeny tiny little time that somebody gave a shit that he was in it. Did it? And also he was in their system, right? I think he was actually in OVW after I was gone. And then he stayed in their system for quite a while. And then they brought him up and they gave him a bit of a run. And then CM Punk, I know, was specifically saying that he fucking hurt you looking sideways at you. And then he's gone and has he wrestled anywhere else? Has he ever done any independence? Has he ever wrestled anywhere around the world?
I can't say for certain. I can only say that I have not heard about him wrestling anywhere since WWE.
Or even before, except in their system.
Correct. I don't know of him working indies before, and certainly not after.
Okay, so Mark Henry debuted, as we've said, it was a rough start because he didn't have the training, because they didn't have a developmental program at that time, but debuted in 1996 and was a full-time guy a few years later for a while. And I know he was in OVW because they would send him to help out on occasion, and he was very much of a help to us. And I was gone by 2005. That means that Fatback wasn't even in the business for 10 years after Mark Henry was in it. And Mark Henry's been on the mainstream television program, either Raw or SmackDown or the pay-per-views or part of shit until a few years ago he retired, I think, right? It's only been a couple of years, and he was part-time a few years before that. So his career, especially on the main roster, is literally, his career is twice as long as Fatback's, and his time on the main roster is probably, 10 times as long. And Fatback is going to criticize Mark Henry. And also, Mark could take one fucking fist and drive Fatback into the ground like a fence post. I promise you. So I would suggest that Fatback talk to his attorney or talk to his marriage counselor or anybody else he wants to talk to instead of talking to Mark Henry in person in any kind of disrespectful fashion. That would just be my advice to him.
Looking at it from his point of view, though, what is the outright slander? What was said that would be outright slander, as he put it?
Well, the truth, which is, in his case, is painful because he doesn't want to hear it, apparently. That's apparently why he doesn't wrestle for anyone, because he doesn't want to hear the truth. Apparently he's has an inflated sense of his own worth and is a klutz and drops people on their heads a lot. That's just what I hear. I've never met the guy.
You're saying that while he inflated his body, his ego was also inflated at the same time?
He was on those ego steroids. Pumped up that ego. Oh, and here's another thing that everybody was talking about on the internet we couldn't find this week. Why can we not find or could not find? You can explain this to the people better than I can. But I'm just a simple man, just a small town bird lawyer. I don't know all the big words and terms. I just know the bird law. Why can't we find what everybody was talking about between the Undertaker and Joe Rogan?
I have no idea, because the video was up, the full episode. It was 2 hours or so. And I told you that we received a lot of questions to the drive-thru about it, so I said that you should probably watch it before we opine on it. And the video was up. I watched like the first 40 minutes. I sent it to you. And then like a day later, it was down. There's no, the full episode is gone. There are clips from the episode. I don't know why it was pulled down. I believe it was on the official Joe Rogan YouTube page. But if anyone has a hookup for it, let us know. But I don't know what happened.
Well, that's it, because as I said, I'm a simple man, and I've never listened to anybody else's podcast. But you said, oh, we need to listen to this, and I'd heard everybody got offended by what Undertaker said apparently about today's wrestlers being fucking fake and soft or whatever, which I can wholly agree with. And so I try, I go to I type it in, boom, Joe Rogan Experience Podcast. I see it's 2.5 hours. I'm like, well, this is going to take a few segments to have this much time to sit down and listen to something. And I click on it and it says, make an account. Well, fuck, I didn't ask to sign up for fucking my life away. So I'll find it on YouTube. And everything like you that I found, video unavailable of the thing. So are they hiding something? Is there some fucking secret that we're not being allowed into here? Is somebody now going to send us 500 links to this thing and say, you idiot, it was easy as doing this? Is that what's going to happen?
I don't know. It was definitely pulled down because, like I said, the official video link was up. I watched part of it, and then when I went back to finish it, it was gone. So I don't know what the hell happened. But we want to see it. That's the point. Yes.
Well, now that I know it's 2.5 hours, I'm not fucking sure. I don't have that much time to lollygag around. I got things going on. I got to buy my GameStop stock or I've got to buy my GameStop stock. See, I said that right. What is it? Okay, Mr. Wall Street. Wall Street last. How the fuck is a failing fucking video game company suddenly become the hottest stock in America?
It's insane. Basically, you have GameStop, which I can understand why people have a sentimental feeling towards the place, but it's a business that doesn't make money.
Because it was all their first date?
No, I mean, if you play video games, it's a cool place. It's an all right place. Plus, you could trade in your old games. There's lots of things.
It wouldn't have a sentimental place in my heart unless I got a hand job behind the back rack.
Or if they had nothing but Tetris. But they are a failing business. It's not a good business right now to be in.
It's very, very bad. Bad business.
And the stock was very, very low. And a bunch of people on Reddit decided... See, this is what I don't know. They either decided just to pump it up to do it, or it was specifically as revenge against hedge funds who were shorting the
somebody
stock.
Found out. Somebody found out about the hedge fund and the short selling thing and all that fancy stuff that they do up there on Wall Street and figured out that there's a loophole here. And now everybody's mad, but they're not going to put Wall Street out of business. They're going to put the goddamn trading companies out of business that have to cover all this shit and can't find the shares. And then they're also probably going to put GameStop out of business eventually because the whole thing's going to crash, right? Because the company is not worth any fucking money.
It's not. Eventually, it probably will. And, again, hedge funds, specifically one guy, had bet against the stock. So the fact that the stock shot up, it didn't double, it didn't triple, it went up a few hundred times. It was catastrophic for that hedge fund. But there were other retail stocks that went through the roof as well. I'm very happy to say that one I just happen to have.
I knew it.
I just happen to have a nice chunk of Bed Bath & Beyond stock, and it never performed well. It was always just a dog of a stock, but I wasn't going to sell it until I saw...
That's because they give anybody that walks in the door 20% off.
But I was going to wait until I saw some profit before I unloaded it. But I had a good amount of it. And then all of a sudden, the other day, it went through the fucking roof. So I unloaded 2/3 of it, kept a little bit just to see what happens, made more than my money back.
So wait a minute. So you unloaded the 2/3 of the Bed Bath & Beyond. Which one did you keep? Bed, Bath, or Beyond?
Beyond, of course.
Beyond. Well, there you go.
That's my favorite section of the store, the Beyond section.
That's when you go in the back and you go past the black curtain, and then all of a sudden you got the lava lamps and the fucking black light. That's always been my favorite section also.
All the My Pillows they're sending back. But no, the reason I sold when I did, and again, I held on to a little bit of it just in case, but this is all going to crash. This is all going to come back down to earth, and the people who hold on to it too long, they're going to lose their money here. GameStop has gone through the roof, though.
Some people obviously have made a bunch of money because they had it when it was worth what it was supposed to be worth and then sold it for bigger. But at some point, and I think it's already happening, but somebody's going to pay $500 a share for a fucking share at a company that's not worth shit and lost, what was it, $400 million last year. I'll just be over here with my, I'm telling you what, International Telephone and Telegraph have never let me down. I know the Telegraph is coming back. I have a property.
Really?
That's right. I have a property in Wisconsin that has already stored 400,000 pre-cut telegraph poles. For when they come back, I've got the market cornered. Folks, if you've got a lot of GameStop stock and you didn't get out at the right time, you might want to call our friends over at BetterHelp. Regardless of what your problem, whether it is frivolous as the stock market or whether it's something that's interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals, BetterHelp assesses your needs and matches you with your own licensed professional therapist, and you can start communicating in under 48 hours. It's professional counseling done securely online. We've talked about it. Service is available for clients worldwide, and there's a broad range of expertise available. You don't have to go anywhere in person. Even if you had somewhere in your rural area in person to go, you can get weekly video or phone sessions that you can schedule so you don't have to sit in the waiting rooms. They're committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy for you to change counselors if you need. Till you find the one that's right for you, you can go to BetterHelp.com and read the testimonials. They post them every day. But if you go to BetterHelp.com/JCE, that's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, then you can get 10% off your first month's services. BetterHelp.com/JCE. Folks, join the over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. This podcast is indeed sponsored by BetterHelp, and Jim Cornette Experience listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/JCE.
Well, Jim, speaking of BetterHelp, I think some of the listeners need help with their suggestions for the Corny Awards. I don't know if you've got any. I've received a bunch, and some are okay, and then some are just completely missing the point altogether.
I've gotten a few. I have, as a matter of fact. I have an email here, but I know you have some. Are you accusing our listeners of not being creative? I think we've established that there's a creative bunch of people out there.
There are some who have been creative and tried to run with it. And then there are others who, again, like I said, they missed the point. It's like, my suggestions are Wrestler of the Year, Best Match of the Year, Best Babyface, Best Heel, like all the typical ones you would see everywhere.
They're missing the flavor of the thing.
That's right.
That's what you're saying.
I got a few suggestions here. This was sent to cornydrivethrough@gmail.com from Mike in somewhere. The You Fucking Idiot Award, presented to the wrestler who has lost future money due to how badly they've been booked. He suggests the winner would be MJF, with the runner-up being FTR and Keith Lee. The Making the Most of a Bad Situation Award, presented to the wrestler who did their damnedest this year, instead of staying home and getting their spouse pregnant. The winner would be Drew McIntyre, runner-up Lashley. The Corny Fucking Told You So Award, presented to the wrestler who turned out to be exactly who Jim Cornette spent years telling you they were. The winner being Joey Ryan. The runner-up being Trump supporters. The May Be Used as a Flotation Device in Case of Emergency Award, presented to the person who has given up on everything but French fries. The winner being Chris Jericho. The runner-up being Paul Heyman.
Oh, now I got to reverse those positions. Because, I mean, still in the right lighting, it looks like Chris has abs, but I think Paul's abs have absconded a long time ago.
The I'd Rather Fillet a Cactus Award, presented to the person who has the most abominable preferences in cuisine, the winner being Brian Last. And the I Was Too Busy Making Money Award, presented to the best match Jim and Brian didn't see because they have lives, Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles on SmackDown is the winner, with the NXT UK Heritage Cup as the runner-up. So there's one listener's ideas for awards.
Those are some suggestions, and also some suggested winners. I have some suggestions for the awards here, but they didn't necessarily go into the winners. They leave that up to us. These are just the suggestions for awards to give out. Although the first one really doesn't work, and you'll hear why when I read it. The President Pig Shit Memorial Award to the wrestler who shifts most extremely from left to right politically in a calendar year. But nobody ever does. Nobody ever switches. You're either normal for life or you're a mental lunatic. Anyway, the Shit-Stain Medallion, awarded to the weekly show that exhibits the most Crash TV-like tactics and has the overall least continuity in a calendar year.
I like that. The Shit-Stain Medallion.
Medallion. Yeah. Wear it around your neck. The Dr. D Slap the Shit Out of You Award, to the wrestler or moment which has exposed or disrespected the professional wrestling industry most egregiously in a calendar year. How would you shift through the nominees? The Twinkle Toes McFingerbang Grand Supreme Little Darling Award for Best in Dance, awarded to the best dancing performer working as a wrestler in the professional wrestling industry in a calendar year. The Jericho Fall from Grace Award, awarded to the wrestler who has fallen from grace in look, skill, and entertainment factor the most in a calendar year. Sort of like when you last saw superstar Billy Graham as the WWF champion and he came back as Karate Billy Graham with the shaved head.
The only problem, I think these are fine suggestions, but basically the wrestler that he names in the award or the person who would more than likely win the award for the previous year.
Well, no, not the Dr. D Slap the Shit Out of You Award. That's an homage to
the Jericho Award for the wrestler that has fallen the most in the last year?
Or the Twinkle Toes McFingerbang Grand Supreme Little Darling. Well, how about this one? This is one you're going to like, Brian, coming up.
All right.
The Whatever Chinooka Is Cameo of the Year, awarded to the best overall reviewed cameo video in a calendar year.
That's pretty good.
Next, the Stimpy New Award to the best aired moment where Jim almost needed Stephen P. New, but didn't. Those moments usually don't get aired when I would, yeah.
There's been a few.
Uh-huh. Cornyism of the Year, to the spoken one-liner from Jim Cornette, which becomes the most repeated in a calendar year. This is one actually coming up next that, once again, to sift through the nominees in this category would keep the folks at Price Waterhouse it's the Football Fuckery Lifetime Memorial Award in the Art of Embarrassment and Ineptitude, awarded to the match or segment in the calendar year so vile and heinous it should never be viewed again. Sort of like a little bit longer version of the tooth and nail rule. Let's see. Also, a couple more. The Balding Buck Flippy Shit Acrobatic Performer of the Year Award, awarded to one of the 5,000 professional wrestlers who does flippy shit the most in a calendar year. This one could be near and dear to your heart, Brian. It's the Brian Last Nothing to Say Award, awarded to the most critically acclaimed major moment of the calendar year that was so flabbergasting that Jim was rendered speechless.
I like that. That's good.
And finally, the Uncle Dave Award, awarded to the personality in wrestling who becomes most brainwashed to the modern wrestling line of thinking in a calendar year. You know what they call it? Falling down the rabbit hole on the QAnon documentary, where they see, this one of the people interviewed saying, I've lost my uncle. He's gone. He believes in the lizard people and whatever. But it blew up when everybody was in the house and getting on the internet over the last year. And they fall down the rabbit hole. I've seen a lot of our friends and compatriots and generational cohorts falling down this modern wrestling rabbit hole. Fortunately, my ass is too wide. I get stuck without falling down the rabbit hole.
I got one more that was sent in here. This was sent by John in Kansas City. I want to nominate my award for fattest piece of shit in wrestling to Chris Jericho. He has a huge ego, latches on to anything that is popular. His matches are terrible. He can't work anymore for shit. Not to mention his comedy is terrible, and he has turned the Inner Circle from a group of heels to a joke. He's a cancer to the business and needs to retire. Just my thoughts.
Just your thoughts. Well, there you from Kansas City.
John in Kansas City.
You had, as opposed to Michael's in Kansas City, where I got my pants from, because on Flair's recommendation, you read that, Brian Ladd. You had an ulterior motive in reading that. That wasn't even that entertaining. You just wanted to say those words.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. You're seeing more and more people catching up to my way of thinking when it comes to Chris Jericho. I'm not new on this bandwagon. I enjoyed his early work in AEW, although there were signs of future problems. But I've been saying that a lot of these things, other than the weight gain, I've been saying a lot of these things about Chris Jericho for 5 or 6 years now.
You're jumping ahead. We're going to talk about the folks at AEW. We're going to have some good things to say about AEW this week. If anybody wants to pop the popcorn early and sit down and listen to this, because we actually are, but we'll cover that. But
now they're going to tune out. Now they're going to tune out that you said we have positive things.
Oh, we got plenty of bad things, but there are some good things. There's a variety. But you got to explain something else to me before we get there. We got to go to the other side of the road. The WWE Network, for their grand plan to give everything they do away for $10 a month, what was it, 6-7 years ago, has evolved into a grand plan where now they give everything away for $5 a month. Is this what I understand now? And plus more now with Tomato?
Well, no, they're not going to be giving it away. It'll be NBC, Universal, and Peacock that will be giving it away.
That's what I'm saying. We're giving it away. That's the old Madman Mac commercial. I want to give them away, but my wife won't let me.
Unless, again, though it's $4.99 for a tier with advertising, you could stay at $9.99 and, based on what I've read so far, get everything you're getting with the network without ads, but also get access to everything else on Peacock.
Oh, well, how charitable.
It actually is a pretty good deal, all things considered.
You think? That's what I'm saying. They've completely, yes, they've remade the financials of the wrestling business, and a bunch of people are going to say, oh, Cornette's so out of touch, and he blah, 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 and he don't understand in streaming and blah, blah, blah. I'm one of the boys. I'm wondering how this is good for me. I'm not one of the McMahon family that owns fucking 86% of the stock or whatever the numbers are. And they went from producing a show every year, WrestleMania, that fills up a stadium and could gross $50 million in one night between pay-per-view and fucking and more. Now they grossed $50 million with WrestleMania 17, Austin and Rock. And there was no streaming back then. They gave up all of their pay-per-views, plus all the back catalog. They cannibalized the DVD sales, which are now negligible or nil or whatever, but everything for the network. And they've apparently made plenty of money. But the guys, remember when they announced the network and they announced the network was going up, they scheduled a talent meeting with all the talent to tell them how royalties would work going forward, since there wasn't going to be these big pay-per-view gates and bonuses and payoffs anymore, and there wasn't going to be the DVD royalties. I mean, I know they have video games and things, but for a while there, guys getting royalties on the DVDs of the big shows, the pay-per-views, the compilations, the documentaries, as well as the pay-per-view bonuses themselves, could be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for guys per month or whatever. I got some decent royalty checks just from shit that I was on. But point being, they had that meeting scheduled. They canceled it, said they were going to reschedule it. That was 7 years ago. Brian, have you heard about that meeting being rescheduled?
No, and that was one of the big questions I had, is how are payoffs now going to be handled after this deal?
Well, and I can tell you from personal experience, in part of the case, I was still up till 7 years ago getting a royalty check every quarter from the WWE for a few $1,000s or several $1,000s or whatever, based on DVDs or compilations or things that they'd sold in various places in the world with my image, but that has gone now to where if you don't get $50 of royalties, I think it is, in a quarter, they don't even send you a check. I haven't seen a check since March from them. And then it was like $69. Everything, from what I understand, for a lot of guys, fell in a half or a quarter or whatever after the network phased in. Gradually, they've just phased in when they, do contracts with guys. The base pay is higher and et cetera, et cetera. But the point I'm trying to make is the company now can make money with a fucking traveling cast. Like, do you know who's in Cirque du Soleil? Do you know who unless it's an Olympic skater, do you know who's in the Holiday on Ice, in the chorus line or whatever? It's just a fucking production company now, as they finally wanted it to be all along, and it finally is. It's a television production company that's incidentally about wrestling. But now you've lost the ability to have a gate attraction because there's practically no gates to fucking draw. And sooner or later, that's what I think it's sooner than later. I think that's what most of it already is. When we get to NXT here in a minute, you've just got a bunch of interchangeable wrestlers putting on a performance. There's no need for a Brock Lesnar. There's no need for a Hulk Hogan. There's no need for a Steve Austin or a Rock. There's no need for a major attractions because you're guaranteed money to produce content. But the guys, as a result, yeah, everybody might make good money for what good money is these days, but nobody's going to make great money ever again, because how can any one attraction, one talent, one box office draw be important enough to get major money when the fucking box office makes no difference? And there were royalties paid on all these and that was stemmed from the Jesse Ventura lawsuits in 85, 86. They had to start paying royalties to the guys, to the whoever, unless it was written in the contract specifically not.
It was after that. It wasn't 85 or 86. It was separate.
Well, but it stemmed from that. Jesse stirred and started the whole thing up. That's when that started happening. But the point is, they were paying guys royalties. Now, but I'll guarantee you, the Screen Actors Guild, because if Peacock is also showing reruns of Friends, are all the Friends not getting something? Even if it's Paul McCartney, he gets 3 cents every time they play Yesterday in a fucking elevator. But the guys aren't going to get anything off Peacock. The guys aren't getting any royalties off the network. And the network now has evolved into the biggest portion of all wrestling still available on video anywhere in the fucking world. So now I can't believe that for the guys have less say or control over how this stuff is done with their images and their likenesses, and they're not going to get anything off of it. Well, they can say it's built in their contract. This shit's going to play forevermore, the rest of the fucking time. And now you can access pretty much everything in wrestling that was ever put on tape, plus all the new stuff, and Wrestle fucking Mania that used to be $75 to get on pay-per-view, or you'd spend fucking however much money to get there live. $5 a month. The next step is paying people to watch it. How does this make your product look valuable to people? So that the company may be getting great money from NBC because they gave up all that money to begin with for their pay-per-view gates and WrestleMania and all the big shows. So at least this is better than what they had. But why did they do this all to begin with?
Well, streaming is the future. And there's a reason why Disney has done so well with their Disney Plus and Netflix does so well. Problem with WWE is they don't have a fan base like Disney or or the various films and television shows on Netflix. And one of the advantages of this deal is that, hypothetically, people who were not familiar with WWE could bump into it on Peacock. No one subscribed to the WWE network unless they were already WWE or wrestling fans. Now you potentially have the idea that people on Peacock who are there to watch Friends or whatever's on there, they could see that and go, oh, I'll watch this.
What do you think their reaction is going to be once they watch it if it's the new stuff?
That's the other issue. This still doesn't address any of the problems with the current content, how bad it is, and how there needs to be a complete creative overhaul immediately, and Vince McMahon needs to have nothing to do with creative. This does nothing to address that. And to your earlier point about the wrestlers losing out on royalties, that's one of the reasons, too, why it was such a big deal that wrestlers were doing these third-party deals where they were finally able to make some of that money back. And then WWE came in and said, no, we're going to handle these for you.
I'm just, they have exposed the business, trivialized the business, made the business for silly and fun people to put smiles on people's faces so that now fewer people are watching what's called pro wrestling in the United States of America now than ever before in history. That's undisputed. But those people that are still watching are so devoted that they're willing to spend more money per head than wrestling fans in any other generation or era. Pretty much, even the Attitude Era, people spend more money now per head on what they like and what they want to support. So the major promotion says, well, in that case, let's make everything that we've ever done available for half the price it is now, on the theory that more people will want to watch it. What the fuck? Do you see why I'm verklempt here?
I do. I think it's a good deal for WWE in terms of profit. I mean, they weren't making the money that they had originally anticipated making with the network. This way you get the deal with NBC, you tie yourself in further with NBC. There's a lot of people that actually think this may be the first step to NBC purchasing WWE.
Oh, God. Oh, I can imagine how wonderful it'll be then. You know what, Brian?
What?
I'll tell you what. What in the butt? I'll tell you what.
What?
Butters, you ought to watch South Park. What in the butt? You know, you might have to, by this time next year, pay people to watch professional wrestling, but you won't have to pay people to watch you in a buttercloth shirt. You'll be ready to go. You will be the star of the show in the world's most comfortable shirt. A dress shirt that makes you feel like you're wearing your favorite t-shirt, folks. Whether you're tall or short or portly and stout or skinny and bony, they've got a ranges of sizes and fits. As they say, you'll look like Friday night but feel like Sunday morning with a little bit of Tuesday afternoon thrown in. They're not stiff. They're not scratchy. Like we said, it's soft. It's like a puppy's belly. Revolutionary fabric made with long fiber cotton with a 6-way stretch. It's breathable, warm in winter, cool in summer, tailored fits. These things are fantastic. And they've got a gifting program during COVID because nobody wants to go to the mall. You buy one of these shirts or multiple shirts, you get a beautiful gift box. They can ship to multiple addresses in one order and put a personalized note in each. It's one-stop shopping. You can send the world of comfort to every man in your life, folks. And Buttercloth, that's because it's soft as butter, is offering our listeners 20% off your first purchase. Go to buttercloth.com/JCE and get 20% off your first full price order. That's buttercloth.com/JCE. You will feel like you've got a stick of butter just rubbed all over your body. And Brian, you know what that feels like.
Well, I don't know what that feels like, but I will say they are the most comfortable shirts. I wore one the other day to something I had to take care of, and it was so comfortable.
Wow, that is such a fucking awkward phrasing. I wore one the other day to something I had to take care of. What, when you dumped the guy over the bridge, did it make a splash and stain your buttercloth shirt?
I don't do those kind of things, but I may know a few people that do. But I had to wear one the other day, and it was just delightful. What a comfortable shirt.
Delightful.
And I look good.
Well, that's a matter of opinion, but the shirt looks good.
That's right.
It just depends on what you feel like about the filling. What are you doing? Before we talk about the wrestling programs this week, and there was not much to talk about on one of them, what are you doing this week on the various programs that Kimpelman's in charge of?
This week on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Get information about all shows on Twitter at Superpodcasts or on Facebook, facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. A few notes. Once again, I mentioned it last week, want to bring it up again. The latest Super Studcast where Ron Fuller talks to the legends of wrestling, available for patrons at patreon.com/Studcast. A 2-part look at Danny Hodge with Ron Fuller talking with Jerry Briscoe and Cowboy Bill Watts. Hear it today, patreon.com/Studcast. Also want to mention the latest episode of Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam, his special guest, the noted producer, Jace Nacarado. Hear that today at McAdamPod.com. What do you mean, no?
He's coming out in front of the microphone.
He's in front of the microphone at McAdamPod.com or wherever you find your favorite podcast. The latest episode.
I've never heard Jay Sharknado's voice before.
Hear him today at McAdamPod.com. Also want to make mention the latest episode of Charting the Territories, out right now at chartingthepodcast.com, available wherever you find your favorite shows. This is a look, of course, at Mid-South Wrestling at the territory of Louisiana and Oklahoma. This time talking about 1981 Mid-South Wrestling and a feature on someone who I just saw. Howard Baum says he was always kind of a creepy baby face. Don Diamond. And I must admit, when you see him and he's got that cheek tattoo on his chest and the little fro, you know, there's a reason why his career didn't last into the 80s too much. He looks like shit.
I remember, yeah, he was made for the smaller territories.
That's right. But hear more about that, as well as Mid-South Wrestling, Cowboy Bill Watts, and so much more at chartingthepodcast.com. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, the Mothership!
Who the hell do you think you are?
The great Brian Last and the 605 Super Podcast is in production. Go through the archives today at 605pod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcast, the Mothership.
Well, we put it off long enough. We're going to talk about some wrestling, and we said last week on the program that NXT had been such a disappointment in most ways that I said Balor and O'Reilly were going to interact. I thought they were going to have the rubber match, but instead they're going to be partners. I said, I'll see what they do, and we will see if anything else is worthy of comment. And the answer to that one is negative. But I just want to briefly thumb through and explain to the people who may not have watched this program how rotten it was. And how that, for whatever reason, Brian, do you heard about the ratings, right, this week?
I did.
This was probably the best AEW television program I've ever seen them do. And this was probably the worst NXT program I've ever not even wanted to watch most of, and they were only 20,000 viewers apart. AEW was down, NXT was up. There's no justice in the world. But this is what NXT gave us, expecting people to watch this. The opening match was another Dusty Classic Tag Team Tournament match. Drake Maverick and Killian Dane against MSK. As we mentioned, the whole deal with Dane and Maverick, the reluctant partners, has been ridiculous and hokey and phony. And I've met Drake Maverick, and he's a fine young man, but I have to be fair and I have to be consistent. Visually, it's ridiculous. And the jacked up member of MSK, I've watched this for a second, wrestled evenly with Drake Maverick, who's 70 pounds lighter, it looks like. And then the MSK with bad hair and prison tattoos did a backslap tag and started doing gymnastics. And I just zoned out. Killian Dane has got a rough and tumble, burly heel or gimmick babyface look. If he hadn't been made out to be a bumblefuck with a partner that he doesn't want and shouldn't have, they might have been able to do something with him. Did you see Mercedes or Mackenzie or whatever her name is, the blonde lady in the back with Kurt Stallion? The fucking nondescript guy that hit the ring last week in street clothes is Kurt Stallion. And he sat there and delivered a promo about tumbleweeds and shooting stars that was the most scripted nonsense that I've ever heard, in a delivery that made it sound like he was at the time under hypnosis. Did you even watch any of this, by the way?
I guess you couldn't tell by the good mood that I'm in today.
Okay, well,
I did not bother with NXT. I DVR'd it just in case you said, Brian, you have to see this.
But you don't need to see this. But if I'm lying, I'm flying, and my feet ain't left the ground. I don't know what the fuck. Tumbleweeds and shooting stars. Then they have to have a women's tag team tournament, Dusty Classic. So it was Aaliyah and Jessie Camilla, and Robert Stone is back against Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. That was the second match of the evening. The third match of the evening was Tyler Rust with his new manager, Malcolm Bivens, against I don't know who the fuck. And the reason I don't know who the fuck is because they joined this. They were already in the ring. The bell rang and they locked up as soon as they came up on the air. And then they went to a promo with Malcolm Bivens in the box over the start of the match. And why would I care? You know, like this was fucking, and so boom. Then another Dusty Classic tag team match. The Grizzly Droopy Veterans against Kushida and Leon Ruffin. Almost an hour into the program at that point, I'm fast forwarding the show and watching the commercials, right? It's not a who's who of tag team wrestling. It's a who's that of tag team wrestling. And then this match was over, and so they cut to the back, and Brian, guess what was happening back in the back locker room area?
A backstage brawl.
No, it wasn't happening. It had already happened. Somebody else had been beaten up. I've said this, I've called for this. We should have congressional hearings, more security, because the most dangerous place on earth is a wrestling locker room 4 or 5 times per night. Somebody's getting beat up back there, right? So at this point, I'm just like, fucking hell, is anybody going to try here? Tony Storm comes to the ring and does an in-ring promo. And Tony Storm, as we've mentioned, looks like a star and does a decent promo, but we're an hour and 15 minutes into this show. And here comes Io Shirai, who can barely speak English. And I'm now watching 2 girls argue, one that can barely speak English on a fucking wrestling program. And suddenly they tackle each other, and start having a fight, and they're just alone in the ring. Nobody's ringing a bell. Nobody's running out. Nobody's trying to stop it. Referee, security, other people. Then here comes Mercedes Martinez. And these 3 girls go back and forth, flattening one of them, and then the other 2 will fight, and then one gets taken out, whatever the fuck. No bell, no referees, no security. They just fight back and forth for no reason until I think they were finished. And then Swerve Scott took on Bronson Reed. Bronson Reed lost Godzilla, his sidekick, this week. Maybe they realized he didn't have a fucking stuffed Godzilla on his shoulder this week, but I look at this guy. He could have been in any territory, in any era of the business. You could have taken this guy, maybe shaved his hair a little bit because he's got a little just kind of floppy young haircut, but you could have made him a monster heel, given him a hot manager, and made him a main event attraction instantly in 4 weeks' time in any territory in the world. And in this match, I don't even know who the fucking babyface was supposed to be, because it probably was Bronson Reed, but Swerve Scott just wrestles. He doesn't actually work like a heel. Swerve is a mid-card guy absorbing all of Bronson Reed's shit and kept fighting back. And then finally, Reed beat him with the splash, but it was too competitive because with Bronson Reed, if you're not going to use him as a monster with a goal in mind and you're going to fucking make him a top guy, don't fucking use him. If he needs to get practice, then put him on fucking fair shows in Florida, because he's too special to just be out there having matches and setting people's opinion of him as this guy who has good matches with middle card fucking guys. They can't make attractions anymore. Guess who's going to team next week on NXT, Brian, that we actually are going to have to dip into this one? Guess who's going to be partners?
Who haven't already been partners?
Yes.
Damian Priest and Mickey Mouse.
Well, we should be so lucky to get Priest, Tommaso Ciampa, and Timothy Thatcher.
Oh, they're friends now.
Yes, because they sat down next to each other. Ciampa was in front of his garage door with the purple lighting that he usually sits at, and Thatcher pulled up a chair, and now apparently they're soulmates because of their mutual respect, and next week they're going to wrestle Adam Cole and Roderick Strong.
Oh, okay, that I do want to see.
Well, yes, it's going to be a great match, but it's just so fucking stupid. They just had a fight pit and got respect for each. I don't fucking. And who's the goddamn heels? Cole and Roddy have just, the era has become baby faces, and Ciampa and Thatcher is Ciampa now a fucking heel because he's got respect for Thatcher, who was a heel? I don't fucking know. And finally, the last match was on this program. I'm not kidding. This is everything else that I've just read off. That's what they gave you. O'Reilly and Balor against Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch. And I can say real briefly about this match. As a pro wrestler, Balor is a better all-around in-ring worker than anybody on either show except Dax, and O'Reilly ain't far behind. But on these shows, he's the guy. And Lorcan and Burch they're great mechanics, but they have no personality, no color, and nobody's trying real hard to give them any. From the black boots and the black tights to the bald heads to the same faces to the whatever. A manager could be color, or a gimmick without making them goddamn, talking parrots or whatever. But nevertheless, here was another problem I've heard, because the announcers beat to death the idea of can O'Reilly and Balor coexist and trust each other, but they did not beat to death, and I was trying to listen to find out why that they were in this match to begin with, why that it was a thing that they needed to do to team up, and that's the thing they never explained. And so you've got the two guys that have been fighting, have broken each other's jaws against the team that Burch and Lorcan don't really heel. They just wrestle rough and make mean faces. But I realized when I was watching this match, I know there's no fans out there, and I know everybody's smart anyway, but if there was people in a building watching these matches, almost nothing about what modern heels do to the baby faces would get enough heat that it would make the fans want to help them. These days, it just looks like they're just kicking the babyface's ass. So that was the reason why that I mentioned this whole TV show to begin with, is because this match made me realize, when I was trying to look for something constructive, think about it. Heels don't heel. Heels do. They might cheat and pull hair, but the kind of jeopardy that the heels used to put the baby faces in, whether they were bleeding or whether they were hurt or whether the heel was believable enough trying to pull their eye out or really fucking them around or going to hurt somebody, the shit that they would do that would make people in the audience want to hit the ring and help the baby face fight back is not even being done. So even nobody works like a despicable fucking heel that needs his ass kicked. So even if people believed it anymore, which they don't, there's no instigation. There's no trying to arouse people with some type of, give them some sense that there's unfairness going on, that somebody's being cheated or jacked around or screwed out of something. But I mean, and Balor and O'Reilly were good as a team. Balor did a great job of fighting for the hot tag. Kyle did a big fucking comeback, and he caught Burch, I guess it was, with a fucking submission and tapped him out, which was so refreshing. I've talked so many times about when you have a tag team match, get the heat, give your partner the fucking big hot tag, blow a big comeback, and go into the finish. Not incessant tags in and out, back and forth on one or both sides. that then brings the thing down before you do your finish. And then, of course, Pete Dunne fucking hit the ring, and the heels got heat on Balor because Kyle was down. But this may that was either a dramatic foreshadowing or a bad camera shot. They shot Kyle O'Reilly real briefly, and he's looking up and watching them, just obviously clear-eyed, watching them kick the shit out of Balor, like waiting for his cue. I don't know whether that was a fucking mistake or whether it was they're going to harken back to that later if something happens between them. But anyway, they had here comes Cole and Roddy, and the heels powdered to the stage, and they had a wild, chaotic stare down to end the program. Except for that match, it was hot fucking dog food. And that was one of their better ratings, which I'm telling you, a lot of times the rating is you get the rating you deserve from the show you had the previous week. But I didn't think last week was that good either, though. So I don't know what the fuck.
But the other thing is, and you probably have to say this every now and then, the ratings for all of these shows, for every show on TV, is bullshit. It isn't an exact rating. There aren't...
Well, obviously.
No one's tuned into the cable boxes, which you'd think that's what they would do to tell us who's watching what. We don't know if NXT is 2 million people a week. We don't know if it's 500,000 people a week. We assume that this mechanism that they use to get the rating is correct, but we really don't know that.
Well, okay, Debbie Downer. Just shit all over the whole thing. Actually, I know. I told the guy at our local TV station here one time in Louisville that he'd exposed his business. I've told you this story, but the television station's broadcasting tower for an over-the-air signal was on the air, but something screwed up in their signal to the cable company, which everybody watches at that time. Like 5% of the people are watching over the air. The signal to the cable company, the first 15 minutes of our program, was color bars. And we got the ratings. That was the highest rated 15 minutes. I called the guy and said, bullshit, I caught you. You know about my business, now I know about yours. But the thing is, though, it would seem that whether it's off or on or how far away it is, it would be somewhat consistent with programs from week to week. You would think within their range because they're measuring it the same way every week. That's what I'm going for. So I don't know.
When do they change it up? When do they... I know you would know this. When do they have like new Nielsen families or new Nielsen homes? How often do they change it up?
I used to know that, but I don't anymore because it used to be that sweeps months were what they call them, where they do the rating sweeps. And it was February... November and February were the two most important, and then I believe May was one of those months. But February and November were the important sweeps months, and that's where that they would set their advertising revenue for their seasons based on the ratings information they got. That's why every network program back then, if somebody on Friends was going to get married, they'd get married in a sweeps month, or a big wedding or a big death or a big long-awaited or a guest appearance or whatever would come in the sweeps months.
If you're a wrestling fan, that's why all of a sudden superstars of wrestling had main event matches for a few weeks instead of just job matches.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, go back to November 1989 in WCW, the November to Remember, which was named by Bob Caudle, but was my idea because as soon as they put me on the booking committee, Flair did, and they started talking about the sweeps months, I said, why don't we have a main event match on each one of the WCW programs, Friday Night Power Hour, Saturday Night TBS, Sunday Night Main Event, and the two syndicated shows every week of the month of November. The ratings will come up and we'll all look good. So, well, how are we going to, because back then, sometimes you would not have a main event, like competitive match on a television program. It'd be all job matches or mostly, right? And I remember taking it to one of the trips we had over a weekend. I took the talent roster and the calendar, and the next week at the booking meeting, I came back in with a main event match that we could give away on free TV without being insane. For every television program on that month of all of the programs. So that's what we did. And Bob Caudle, in the production meeting, the first week of that, when we announced that, that's what we're going to do, we should call it November to Remember. I said, well, let's do that. And that's what we did. Anyway, I ain't going to remember much about that episode of NXT, I'll tell you that. But apparently, somebody else remembered our review from last week. Poor old Chris Jericho. I know it's now time to talk about the other boys on the block, our friends over at All Friends Wrestling. Chris got upset at our review of of his performance, I guess you could call it, last week. That it was a performance. It wasn't a match. It was a performance. But as Dennis Condrey used to say, we must have struck a nerve being all telling the truth and stuff, because he felt the need to not only redeem himself on his lion salt, but let the folks on Twitter know that he didn't mind us taking issue with his various antics, as long as he was able to provide us with something to talk about so that we could provide for our families. Sounded like somebody's little fucking ass chap to me.
It reads like his therapist told him to write it.
Do you have that? Do you have that tweet? I mean, if somebody's going to say, "Oh, hey, you know what? Fuck them," or whatever. Some people were actually saying on Twitter. A lot of people said some shit Chris didn't want to hear, but a lot of people were saying, "Well, it's good of Chris to take the high road like that." And like what do they call it? Passive aggressive. I don't understand all this psychology and psychiatry stuff. I'm a simple bird lawyer, but he's obviously, I mean, he's hearing this from more people than us. I guess he just credits us with being the instigators. Do you have that tweet?
I have the tweet here. It was, I've been told Jim Cornette and his sidekick Great Brian Last, continue to brutally bury me for everything I do and say. My response to that is this: have at it. You're entitled to your opinions, and I'm honored to provide content that helps you pay the bills. Helps you pay your bills, excuse me.
Yes.
Best of luck to both of you.
Best of luck in your future endeavors. And I tweeted back, I said, I appreciate that. I said, to be honest, I said, Chris, if you ever did put the vodka down, get on a low-carb diet, quit having a, midlife play crisis with the outlaw mud show wrestlers, and stop donating money to have ridiculous despotic dictators stay in office, I don't know what we'd talk about. And then I forgot, and I had to amend that with also, and there's the reckless spreading of disease everywhere to engage your other midlife crisis fantasy as well. There's also that. I don't know what we'd talk about. I apologize if we hurt his feelings in any way. Don't you, Brian?
No, because we're saying the truth. And if he hasn't noticed, and I think he has, based on the fact that he went out of his way to tweet this in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a day.
Out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere, this thing popped up. I've been told. You mean you've been listening? You've been listening. And yeah, I don't apologize. We're saying the truth about him. His work sucks. He brings nothing to the table right now. The biggest thing he had that was an advantage to AEW was his name recognition and that people knew him off WWE TV. And we've seen what happens when, not the AEW fans, not the indie wrestling fans, but we've seen what happens when old wrestling fans casually bump into Chris Jericho on that show. It's embarrassing. They're embarrassed for him. His work is bad. He doesn't want to hear it. Look, he's been blessed with awful ideas for a very, very long time. And in terms of the donations to Trump, the one thing you'll hear every now and then is, oh, but he gave a few $1,000s to this wrestler who was sick. And oh, he gave a few $1,000s to this wrestler. Yeah, well, he gave $40,000 to Donald Trump.
I was about to say he gave $40,000 to a lunatic to try to destroy the country.
Go back to Canada. That's what I say.
He's got dual citizenship. There's no loophole there.
You know why he has that hole in the middle of his chest? He's got no heart.
He's got no heart. No, that's where they pulled his soul out.
No, we're the soulless ones.
Remember? Well,
Because
Well,
that was where it started.
At you.
Because we didn't like Stadium Stampede. We were soulless wrestling fans.
Have no soul if you did not like Stadium Stampede. So, I think his soul was pulled out long ago. Anyway, and this week, if he'd have just let it go, because let's face it, and I know he was upset when I pointed out, actually in plain terms, and where you could go back and watch to the untrained eye how he takes his shortcuts, because he's obviously doing that so that he can continue breathing for the duration of the matches. But if he hadn't have just come out of nowhere with that tweet, I would have had more positive things to say about AEW this week than probably ever.
Hey, listen, man. Buddy Rogers.
What? Oh, hey, listen, man.
Buddy Rogers couldn't wrestle when he was 40 the way he did when he was 30. He changed the way he worked. If you ever see footage of Buddy Rogers in the early 50s, it's a different wrestler than you see in 1961. Chris Jericho's still trying to wrestle like he used to, and it's embarrassing. And again, he jumped on You and Me. I saw that he also sent out a tweet. Hold on, I think I may have it here. He sent out a tweet also to Sebastian Bach. I've been told that Sebastian Bach continues to go out of his way to bury me. My response is this: be my guest. You're entitled to your opinion, and it doesn't affect me either way. I still dig your work on the first 3 Skid Row albums and look forward to your next record. Again, like I said, it reads like his therapist told him to let it all go and send these out. But he knows everyone's telling the truth. He knows it. He likes his stupid shit, but he knows we're all telling the truth, and he knows the audience that is seeing Chris Jericho for what he really is right now is growing week by week, just like his waistline is growing inch by inch.
All right, now you're not going to tell me that he doesn't have a waistline, he's got a coastline. You're not going to say that.
That's a good line. I wish I would have thought of that.
You're not going to tell me that last year he bought a wristwatch. You're not going to tell me that because I blew it.
What
already.
is that? Now I got to know what that is. What were you?
Oh, hold on. I'm going to back up. You're not going to tell me that last year he bought a belt and now he uses it for a wristwatch. You're not going to tell me that.
I wasn't. No.
You would never tell me that. You're not going to tell me that at his house his bathtub has stretch marks. You're not going to tell me that. Oh, for God's sake. Anyway, let's talk about this program. Because I am going to say a couple of good things.
There was some good stuff on this show. There was one segment that was really, really good, I thought.
I thought there was a couple, but they can't leave anything alone. We'll get to it. But there was more of the good stuff and less of the bad stuff this week. But And I'll say one more thing to put a period on the topic of Mr. Jericho. We liked what he was doing last fall when he was trying to be serious. He's still only a year older. He may have gotten a little bit more portly in the midsection, but if he'd once again bothered to use his name value and name recognition and experience for good in trying to teach these guys how to work and carry the company like we thought he was going to try at the beginning, instead of abandoning any sense of him being the top guy, the experienced veteran, and him just joining in and doing all the stupid shit the kids do, it's magnified and amplified that you can see the shortcomings in his matches. And at the same time, in his in-ring work, because of the things that he's trying to do with these goofy guys. And at the same time, it's devalued him as a draw because he's just become now one of the boys instead of standing out, because he's been involved in all kinds of goofy shit with mid-card guys. So, they've lost a lot of tools in their toolkit. But anyway, they started this program out for the first time in recent memory, maybe for the first time ever. Can you remember them actually just starting this program with a singles match between two guys that looked like grown adult men that you could believe were halfway professional wrestlers having a fight?
I was going to say, it seems like they usually start with a 6-man or a multi-team tag team match. Yeah.
So, I wanted to watch this right off the bat. It's not like they booked either one of these guys like Eddie Graham booked fucking Jack Briscoe in the 70s, but it's a believable combination. I do not know why Jake Roberts came out to the stage and pointed, and then Lance Archer sent him to the back. Otherwise, then Jake has done it again. He's got a high-paying job to stand around and point. But that's in his spare time here. They're not paying him to do that. And I must say, at least I was relieved for once to be able to see this show, because my DVR even said fuck it and didn't record this, and we had to jump through some hoops so I could watch this thing. But as I said, it's the first time it's ever looked like a wrestling show in the opening segment. Archer looks good. Kingston looks like shit, but that's his gimmick. But you believe him. As I've said, it looks like a jacked up, tattooed bodybuilder freak and a fucking mechanic from Brooklyn that'll beat you over the head with a fucking wrench. At least it's not middle schoolers doing cheerleading. And they were hitting hard, and Kingston can sell. And he's got those veteran tricks. Even though they're both heels in this, and that's another thing wrong with the backstory, is that everybody's a heel in this whole conflict. So it could, if Kingston had been presented to me as the working man babyface that got the people behind him and was signed and not have to be in the group thing, was just doing his own shit, and they got him some new gear because he needs to have some other kind of look. I love you, Eddie, but it's not flattering. But a working man babyface with his story that he had to sell some of his shit to get by right before he got the big match, and all his whole real backstory, but just make him look a little better in the ring on his gear. Great working man babyface, and he can sell, and he's got facials, and he's not, and then he looks like the tough guy when he's making a comeback. There was at one point where fucking Archer got up in his face and Eddie fucking thumbed him in the eye. Did you see it? And blinded him. And Archer starts swinging blind to sell it, but he swung blind behind him and tatered Kingston right in the fucking face. And he sold it. He's like, fuck. And that's the best line that any of the announcers have ever had, I think, was from Excalibur to get a guy over. He said, Eddie Kingston got kicked out of Catholic school for throwing a desk at a nun. And it helps that that's true. But that's what they've got, guys that you could package and you could make them attractions if you concentrated on them and the basics instead of all this convoluted bullshit. So anyway, they kicked the shit out of each other. Kingston took that choke slam over the top, which, you know, what the fuck? I know he's trying to fucking get over. I don't know whether it was better that he mostly missed the apron or not. I will give Lance Archer a tip. Lance, if you're listening, within the sound of my voice, quit mugging for the floor camera so much. After the first time, it's fake. You see it in UFC, or you see it, you can hit something or do something and notice the camera there and do the thing and then quit. That's it. The next time you go back to it, and each succeeding time it gets worse, it's fake. It takes you out of the moment. You guys were having a fucking match that especially the AEW fans could believe, because you were hitting each other and doing decent looking shit. Don't go phony to be a hot dog. If you have to, fucking make faces at the people over the top of the camera like you're trying to look over the top of the camera to fucking tell somebody off in the front row. But don't, it makes it fake when you go back a second time or more. Kingston ended up selling, so by the time he started making a comeback, he had the fans with him. I guess they've got some real ones up there. Of course, we know the ringsiders are all employees. And the way they worked this match, Eddie was always fighting, but he was always fighting from underneath. So Archer is more physically dominant, but yet Kingston was the tough guy and he wouldn't give up. And here's another thing, Lance Archer, don't, in a fight like this, in a style of match like this, don't walk the fucking top rope holding hands with your fucking opponent like two schoolgirls jumping a rope and then do a moonsault. It was out of place here in the style of this. We've seen you do it on TV. We know you can do it. This wasn't the place to do it. You might be able to sing opera, too. Wasn't called for here. And, of course, then they have this great match and then the bullshit fake finish. and it could have been easily averted. I don't know why that somebody couldn't have spoken up. But here comes the Butcher and the Baker out dragging Jake, who's been beaten up unseen from in the back somehow, and they drag him out on the stage, and this distracts Archer so that the bunny can unmask at ringside as one of the fans and hands Kingston the knuckles, and his finish is a spinning back fist anyway, so he does the back fist on Archer, 1, 2, 3. Bullshit. Destroyed a lot of what they had accomplished, because as soon as the Butcher and the Baker drug Jake out, everybody goes, oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Number one, no, he didn't get jumped in the back and beat up. Number two, if he did, we've seen it 3 or 4 times a fucking night every week, so it just is bullshit. What would have been, and I know a lot of people say, well, they couldn't beat Jake up. He's old. They don't want him to take bumps. You didn't need to beat Jake up. All right, smarty pants Cornette, then how would you have done it? Brian, you saw the fucking match, and you saw the finish. How would it have been any different if fucking Kingston had taken that bump that he took and Lance Archer's fucking standing over him, and there all of a sudden, instead of dragging Jake out, here comes the Butcher to the run into the ring to the ropes, and Archer turns around and pickles him. Boom. And the Baker's right behind him trying to come in. And before he gets through the ropes, Archer pickles him. Boom. And here comes Jake. Jake the Snake Roberts is bigger, especially now. My God, did you see him? He looked like a beached whale. They were rolling him to the ring. He was coming out of his clothing of the fucking corpulent rolls. But if Jake had just come out that entranceway, and as the Butcher got nailed by Archer and took a bump and started getting up, Jake could have just punched him. And then the second guy's getting up from taking a bump, and Jake could have punched him. And that's enough distraction for Kingston to have gotten his gimmick. And then Kingston fucking back fists Archer while Jake is standing on the ramp. The 2 other heels have bumped off and they're fucking selling. And Jake doesn't turn around in time to fucking see that his guy is down 1, 2, 3. As he goes to step through the ropes, well, the Butcher or the Baker comes up and hits Jake on the back, and down he goes, and he's right where he was in this broadcast. Would that not have been, and not completely made it fake? Couldn't they just have done that? Did they have to drag him out? And he was rolling. You knew Jake could see that he was buried because he was rolling in slow motion and trying to get to the ring, like he was acting like he was trying to get to the ring, but he was too hurt and he had to lay there forever. He could have come out, glory shot, boom, go over on his own and sell. Actually, what'd you think of it?
It was all right. I didn't like it as much as you did. I really didn't like the walking the rope spot into the moonsault. Like you said, it was just out of place there.
Out of place.
But it was okay. I mean, the Lance Archer...
It was refreshing for AEW.
I guess. The Lance Archer-Eddie Kingston feud hasn't been doing it for me.
Well, you always, when there's the 2 most hated individuals in the world are mad at each other, you're always interested. There's nobody to cheer for. And the only people that the baby faces get involved with are each other. Anyway, Jon Moxley was at the town dump, I believe. And he did it was a chain link fence in the dark. I don't know, but he did a good promo trying to explain this rotten booking and went over everybody's relationships in the match that he's in the 6-man tag next week. And since he couldn't understand it, the fans can't follow it. They need an on-screen pie chart and a PowerPoint presentation to understand this. This promo not only was a good promo, but also, to me, it symbolized why that nobody would really care about any of these matches. Because who the fuck knows who's on whose side? Did you get the same thought from he's basically telling the fucking truth? Do you think he's a little testy about it?
Probably not, but it was a good promo. I don't know where he was. It seemed like he was by the side of the airport or something. I don't know.
It felt the planes come out. Maybe he was doing cameos out there. But the location piece, Sting and Darby Allin in an old broken warehouse, it kind of looked like one of the old broken down vacant rooms by the old Davis Arena in Jeffersonville, Indiana, back in 2000, 2001. I'd go back there and throw chairs through the fucking broken windows when I'd get mad that something didn't work on TV. But they're in the old broken warehouse, and I think now, Brian, the jury is back in, the verdict has been rendered. Everybody now fully understands why Sting drew the most money in his career when he wasn't doing promos.
Yep. I was happy, though. He did say it's showtime.
Yes, he did. Yeah. I like Sting, and Sting's a great talent. Sting has never, name a memorable Sting promo. That's the one part of his game nobody ever talks about. They remember the fucking days with Flair and Crockett and the NWA. There was WCW. They remember the fucking Crow Sting. They remember nobody talks about the promos. There's a reason for that. I've been dealing with that since I was on the creative team in WCW in 1990. We had two baby faces, Lex Luger and Sting. Lex Luger could not talk as a baby face because his aloofness and snooty vocabulary made him come off as a heel, and Sting, except in the most extreme of instances when he's really fired up and maybe in the old days after a really hot angle or whatever, Sting has no element of, his voice doesn't convince you. His voice doesn't intimidate you. His voice doesn't make you believe that he believes what he's saying. It doesn't come across, does it? It doesn't sound important. It doesn't sound cataclysmic. Darby Allin's voice is lower than Sting's. So is his head, since he's a foot shorter, but nevertheless. Darby speaks in another one of those hypnosis victims' tones. And Sting how am I trying to, do you get from Sting that he believes verbally what he's saying?
Not really. I mean, like you said, he's not ever been a strong promo. He's never been a strong promo, I guess I should say. I guess I'm not a strong promo either, based on the way I worded that.
Well, that's true. You aren't. But there's no, and hey, he had the beat the chest and the face paint and the body and the whoa and the excitement in the ring, but this ain't so. Then the point is they are building up a street fight involving a 61-year-old man with a bad neck and a 5'6", 150-something pound baby face against Team Taz, who are all jacked up fucking behemoths. And so to make them look badass, then they were going to, okay, let's do it. They're going to turn around and take the baseball bat and throw chairs, then break all this glass in these windows to show that they're hoodlums. That was the word they used. They're hoodlums. Was there safety glass in the windows? Their Sting is taking the bat to the fucking window. Nothing's breaking.
I noticed the same thing.
Fuck? I've literally asked anybody who was in OVW in 1999, 2000. I've broken more windows out back of the old Davis Arena after a shitty TV than they broke to break windows to do it on television. It was like a fucking outtake. Nothing was they cracked a few things. There was not destruction. I would have had all kinds of aluminum cans and tin cans and glass things that they could wipe off shelves and shit set up to destroy a thing, but they didn't break nothing. Your thoughts on that promo?
It was all right. I mean, like you said, it was a set piece. They were in a warehouse or whatever it was. I don't know. I don't know exactly. They got to get their money out of Sting somehow. And I don't know what I would do if I had Sting. But whatever
I'd
they're
have him doing cameos.
Whatever
to get their money out of him.
Whatever they're doing, I'm not so sure of right now.
Next match, Chris Jericho and MJF, now the tag team in the Inner Circle. Always good when MJF plays the part of fucking sidekick like Chill Wills or Edgar Buchanan, one of the old Western sidekicks, to the big old cowboy, and they take on the Varsity Blondes, Griff Garrison, and our friend Brian Pillman Jr. And as I was watching Jericho's entrance, I'm thinking, because, you know, a lot of those outlaw wrestlers that they've signed, they've never used on television. And a bunch of the trainees, the paid fans, they're all down ringside. They do this every week. So the paid fans singing the heels entrance music have probably made more money singing it than Jericho has at this point. Don't you think?
It is ridiculous because you see the baby faces and the heels and they're hamming it up. They're singing to each other. They're singing to the camera. It's so
It looks like
stupid.
one of those Southern Baptist revivals when they think God has come down and we're all going to float to fucking heaven. They're singing in joyous praise of each other. My God, they look like they're having more fun than the Soul Train dancers. And it's the baby faces that you can recognize having fun singing the heels music. It makes no sense. MJF grabs the microphone, does a quick promo to remind us that he's the best verbalist in the business since he hasn't had a spotlight on him as a single in months. MJF starts the match out at the first part of it there. He's a brilliant heel because he is completely does different shit than anybody on his program has done or is going to do, and does absolutely nothing at the same time and gets attention on himself, and then immediately tags Jericho, who you would think would be the veteran who would know to do all that shit, bailing out, backing up, drawing attention to himself without doing anything. And he jumps in and goes into running spots with the young guys to show that he can still do it. Jericho does. And he's doing stuff for Brian Pillman, and I get that because he wants to see Brian succeed. And Brian Pillman, while I'm coaching publicly, follow through on your shoot-offs. You've got better cardio than Chris does. He's not doing it because he's blown up. You're young. Follow through on your shoot-offs. As soon as you got the guy's wrist, back him up hard and jerk the fucking guy off the ropes and fucking take a couple of steps following through and shove him with your right fucking arm. It'll look a lot better. They got the heat on Brian, which was the best choice because Brian, I don't know Griff Garrison's background. Brian just looks like he sells better to me. He's a better seller. And I figured that the deal would be that they'd get the heat on Brian. And since they're doing that, they would give Griff the tag because he actually does have great fire on his comebacks. Griff Garrison does. And they'd beat Griff. Because after all, how many times do you remember we beat up Ricky Morton, gave the hot tag to Robert Gibson, and then fucking tagged Ricky back in and beat him? That's what they did here. I couldn't believe it. Pillman, not Jericho and MJF, Flapjack was better this week, boys. I would take credit for it, but I understand this was a taped show, but they tightened up what they fucked up last week. Anyway, that's the thing. Griff Garrison comes in, makes the comeback, good comeback, but then Brian tags himself back in. He got a nice false finish on Jericho, and people popped, but they should have gone right then. After that good false finish that Brian got on Jericho, if they're going to get the heat on Brian and then beat him too, they might as well have done it then. But they tried to set up some more stuff. It got awkward. Then they set up the springboard by Brian. But Jericho hits the Judas on him and then hits the lion salt because he knew he'd fucked up on the previous show. And Tony Schiavone, how about that one? And I swear to God, the announcers mentioned about 3 more times he hit that lion salt. Like I said, it was a good match that showcased the Varsity Blondes without making them either look completely impotent and like schlubs or like they should have beaten MJF and Jericho. It was done in the right place. I wouldn't have got the heat on Brian and beat him too, but I guess because Griff Garrison is their homegrown guy, they want to protect him. But there was not much wrong with this, except poor Chris is just still, I guess having a bug in his bonnet about proving he can go with the kids. What'd you think?
I think I really wish Brian Pillman Jr. had more chances to get ring time because He improves every time I see him. Physically, he looks more like his dad every time I see him. Not jacked up Flying Brian, but just his natural body type. But I think he has a lot of potential. And every time I see him, I think it more and more. And Garrison looks okay too. We'll see what happens with him, but I just wish these guys had a way to get more ring time because I think they do have potential, especially Pillman Jr.
And Garrison's got time to gain some weight. Right now, he's a little on the thin side. He's gonna be hula hooping with that Cheerio. Anyway, now you got to explain something to me, Brian. Shaquille O'Neal, beloved Shaquille O'Neal, sports hero, iconic figure in American society, right? And the last we saw of him on AEW television, Cody's wife threw a glass of water in his face and was just a heel and a bitch to him, and he was just kind of meandering in a monotone way through the whole thing and sat there and got water thrown in his face. Now the next time we see him, he's reading off a teleprompter. You little punk. Calling Cody Rhodes little punk. You want to fight me, little punk? Or whatever. And for 20 seconds, and that was it. And he had to obviously read that off a teleprompter. You could see his fucking eyeballs following it. And then Cody, who's the babyface, gets in the ring with Arn Anderson and actually comes out and basically tells the people in almost so many words when he says, well, now's where I'm supposed to give you the promo and sell you the thing and the best laid plans. It was supposed to be me and my wife against Shaquille and Jane Cargill. That was what we were going to do, but Brandy got pregnant. So now since we had this fake pre-planned publicity stunt match already figured in, we're going to find another girl for me to team with. Oh, and Arn Anderson's got something to say for once. And then Arn, we've said, why don't you, one of the great promos of all time, let Arn talk, let Arn talk. Arn says nothing every week. He doesn't say suey if the hogs have him. It's the longest promo he's ever had, and you could tell as he started it, he couldn't figure out how this fucking thing made sense. And I've been in that position, especially with some of the stuff that Shitstain booked in TNA that I had to explain as the authority figure. He was trying to make something out of it. He was trying to give it the delivery and the vocabulary of Arn Anderson, but you could see behind his eyes as he got in the middle of it. My God, they've explained this to me, and I've got this promo in my head, and it still don't make sense. And he did the best he could. By the way, God damn it, I was going to look up in my record book, but June 29th, 1985, unless I'm mistaken, Jim Crockett had not opened the LA Forum to wrestling at that point. But he said Dusty and Tully were in the ring, and then Dusty flew home to see Cody Bourne.
What was the date?
June 29, 1985. Look that up. I believe I was at the debut of the first Crockett event in the Los Angeles Forum, and it was in 1986.
Actually, June 29th, 1985, at the Olympic Auditorium.
Olympic Auditorium. Okay. All right. So Arn was right. He just misrepresented the building. And I didn't know they'd gone to the Olympic. So there you go. Anyway, so yes. So they said that this was a setup match that they had planned and it would be happening with Brandy, but she's pregnant. So then Arn brings in a girl that's going to be, that's had problems with Jane Cargill. It's Red Velvet or Pumpkin Spice or whatever the fuck. I don't understand. And then Red Velvet gives a high school play rendition of a wrestling promo. And then when Jim Ross said, ooh, she said bitch ass, so you know she's serious. Because it's almost like they've gone to the shit-stained school of wrestling booking. If you cuss, that means it's a shoot. Or say somebody's real name. Why does this make any sense? Why is this a mixed tag team match? Why is it not Cody versus Shaq? If Shaq didn't want to have a single match, or if they didn't think that he could have a single match, couldn't they have a tag team match with two guys involved somehow in this company so that there would be somebody on Shaq's team to be an accomplished professional and take up any slack, but you'd still get him in the match? Why are we Now getting one, I assume both these girls are out of wrestling school. Actually, no. Jane Cargill ain't out of wrestling school yet. But I assume Red Velvet has recently graduated wrestling school. So on a something that's supposed to get this many eyeballs, this much attention, they're putting in a girl who, as far as we know, has Jane Cargill wrestled in front of people? And
No.
Shaq's done one thing once? And a green girl on one side and Cody? Why is this a mixed tag match at all? If the girl got pregnant that threw the drink in his face, it doesn't make any sense. Explain this to me, Brian.
No, this has been horribly booked. As much as I get a kick out of all the Jade Cargill segments, from point A to here has made no sense. And it's also been spread out over, 3 months? Where even before Brandy was pregnant.
They don't even go back and show shit. Oh, remember what happened? No, they don't do that either.
And even before Brandy was pregnant, there was the Jade Cargill interview, and then we had to wait for the Shaq response with Brandy, who all of a sudden was a heel again. It's just this whole thing has been handled really, really poorly. I'm assuming Shaq's doing this as a favor to Jade Cargill. Not a favor to her, but just this is his friend.
Why do we assume that this story is everything else they've said is bullshit? How do we know that Shaq has ever met Jane Cargill before?
I had actually read something that they had because she was a collegiate basketball player.
All right, well then, wink, wink. So, wink, wink, then.
No wink, wink. I'm not saying they're fucking like you keep alluding to each week. She's with, someone just sent me, she's with Brandon Phillips, the former second baseman for the Cincinnati Reds, I believe.
Well, I don't know why she's in this thing, then. I have no idea.
Because she needs a career, and she's jacked up. I don't know what kind of hormone she's on, but she has a look. They said, let's train her to be a wrestler. And then they said, hey, let's rush her into the ring. This whole thing has been poorly done. Cody, that promo where he's just, like you said, he's explaining, we were going to do me and Brandy because people just can't get enough of Brandy in the ring. We were going to do me and Brandy against Shaquille O'Neal and Jade Cargill, but I didn't use a condom, so here's Red Velvet. What? And what is this thing Red Velvet does where, I don't even know how to describe it. The only time I've seen this motion being used this way is there used to be a fucking gif of some girl doing a dance and a guy was acting like he was going to eat her ass by doing that, like he's spooning the food back into his mouth. What is she doing?
I don't have any fucking clue what you are rambling about.
What is that motion she does where she's like holding a bowl and she's like spooning the food?
I don't know. Maybe open up the fucking hangar and let the airplane land. I don't know.
But look, I've been negative on Cody at times. I've been positive at times. His stuff tends to be the most serious on the show, even when his promos are really pretentious and he's overly acting. It still usually is better than a lot of the other guys on the show. But the booking of Cody for the last 6 months or so has really, really been bad. It's really been bad. Even the Dark Order thing, it was kind of rushed because it was just so he could film his show. So they had Brody Lee and the Dark Order destroy the Nightmare Family. And then Cody was off TV and then he returned and quickly won the title back. It's just, I don't know what they're doing with Cody. And it's also interesting that there is a clique. There are different cliques. Jericho, who's not an EVP, but Tony Khan has revealed that Jericho's in there, with the creative ideas. He's doing his own thing. Cody's doing his own thing. And then Omega and the Bucks are doing their own thing. It's almost like you have 3 different sections of the show. The Cody section, the Jericho section, and the Elite section. And they never mix. They never meet in the middle.
It's inexplicable to fit any of this together. It's all right, but now I said I was going to say good things. The best Adam Page match ever, because it's the only one that I've ever seen that ever made sense. That from the opponent to the way that it was worked to the result. This is the only one all the way through, top to bottom, that has ever made sense. If they'd have given Adam Page 10 of these 10 weeks in a row about a year and a half ago when they first got on television, he might be a star today. A match to get somebody over and make them look good. Imagine that. Good old Ryan Nemeth, Dolph Ziggler's brother. He wasn't as hot shot of an amateur as his brother was, but he trained with Rip Rogers. He knows how to be a heel. He's got a personality. He understands his basics. He did his job. He put fucking Adam Page over and made him look like a world beater. He got a little heat, waltzed him across Texas, as Ernie Ladd would say, and then gave Page a big comeback. It was slightly overdone, giving Ryan a little false finish after the comeback, but then Page hits the buckshot lariat, 1, 2, 3, 6 minutes. They do everything backwards. They've done Page backwards, too. Every match he had on TV was a fucking complicated main event with intricate booking behind it. And then they just basically did right here, a year and a half into this show, did Adam Page's first TV match. That's how we should have first seen him. And it should have continued for weeks and weeks, and then put him in the main events and the fucking complicated and then the title and the blah, blah, blah. They do everything backwards. This was perfect for what it was. Disagree with me, I dare you.
No, it was all right. It was good.
That's a full-throated endorsement. See, that I'm not saying it was the greatest match. I'm saying they need to do the proper things that they're supposed to do. And I compliment them when they do these things. Not every match has to be the greatest match of all time. But now Tony Schiavone was with Matt Hardy, and he jumps in there because Hardy had come out to watch the match. And Adam Page in the ring, and Matt is I support you. You seem lost. You've lost your love. They actually used the word love for Bucks and Olivier and the things the Dark Order's done to you. And Matt's telling Page he deserves to be happy, but he's dressing by himself in the hallway. Well, you can dress in my room. Adam, what is this, high school PE? What is that? It was like... These are supposed to be grown adult professional athletes speaking to each other, and Matt was speaking to Page like he's a troubled teen that's lost his friends and is dressing in the hallway. Does this make any sense to you?
Again, the match was okay, but the booking of Page for a long period of time now has been really lacking. If they're going to link him up now with the latest gimmick change for Matt Hardy, sports agent Matt Hardy or whatever this is, I don't know about that. And again, there's nowhere else from the change. He's changing in the hallway?
There's no, he's not. Nobody believes that. He's not changing unless he's at an independent show, and that's when everybody changes in the fucking hallway. Anyway, we had our clinic next. We've been saying it all along. If they gave Jungle Boy a real talent to work with that could lead him, control the timing, put the match together, Jungle Boy can be a star. That's exactly what they did. Of course, this has been botched from the start, the booking and everything else. But as a standalone piece of business, this was the best pro wrestling match that AEW has ever put on television. Dax Harwood and Jungle Boy. Why they did it, why they've botched FTR like they have, why that dwarf dong sucker is even a part of this fucking conversation, we don't know, but they had a great match. And I said, okay, yes, they immobilized Tully and Cash, both handcuffing them to the fucking Dino douche, but at least he is a giant. I don't know why they let dwarf dong sucker even come to the stage and then leave. That should not have happened. But this is what Jungle Boy is needed. Singles matches from guys that he can learn from, not a bunch of multi-man matches with gymnasts. And I'm disappointed that FTR didn't fucking ground the dwarf and just hurt him on purpose. They let me down that they stooged and bumped for him, but this was perfect on Dax's part. This was a fucking masterpiece. They took their time. And also, by the way, nobody told Cash to tape his wrist when he got handcuffed. I bet he was, well, they didn't get that active. But if you don't put some kind of padding, a bunch of rolls of tape around your wrist or tape of a wristband or something. Feel all those sharp bones you've got in your wrist? Oh, fucking handcuffs hurt. I found that out a long time ago. And then I got into wrestling. Anyway, Dax led it perfectly. The timing, the selling, the coming back. He kept the tension up as to when Jungle Boy was actually going to get uncorked through this whole match. And this is also a match like this. It would subliminally have made Jungle Boy look so much better if FTR had been booked credibly and strong. And if Dax hadn't been rolling around for the Dwarf 2 weeks ago, it would have been even better here. That's those subliminal things that people, it registers, but they don't even notice it at the time. But continually, Dax was making Jungle Boy fight to get the opening for a comeback, and he would get some, but then he stayed on him. And it was so much of a struggle for Jungle Boy to finally get to open all the way up. You were wanting it before it happened. I enjoyed the slingshot sit-down powerbomb, little play on Tully stuff. That was a great false finish. And time after time, Dax would stop him but couldn't put him away, but he'd never let him fucking uncork. They got the quick near falls in, the double bridge, and Flair would always, how deep? How deep in the match that Flair and whoever he was working with could do the double bridge spot was a big, because, I mean, it's easier to do the first 15 minutes than the last 15 of 45, right? And that's why I can't remember how deep it was in the match when he and Steamboat got it in. I think what was it, New Orleans? It was way anyway. And finally, he gets he finally blew a bit of a comeback, but still boom, 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 boom. It had been a struggle, and then finally catches his snare trap for the tap out. This was the best worked match, start to finish, both in terms of psychology and actual physical execution, I think, in the history of AEW television. But having said that, they can't leave anything alone. And Tully fucking throws the powder and blinds Dino douche, and they slingshot suplex Jungle Boy and spike pile drive Dino, and that's great too. And they handcuffed Dino to the ropes. That'd have been great too if they were going to go over and sodomize Jungle Boy. But instead, they cut the fucking horns off of the dinosaur's mask. We're back to children. We're back to breaking video games. If they'd have stopped at the pile driver and the fucking suplex and left them laying, it would have been a flawless segment. And then when the faces come to hit to make the save, who's in front but the fucking Dwarf with a chair? And was reckless with the chair. He's throwing that chair around. I got news for you, you little fucking freak of nature. Maybe goddamn Cash, who you were slinging that chair out, won't come and give you the goddamn Hall of Fame treatment he gave that other guy, but sooner or later, you little piece of shit, you're going to fucking come out there acting all badass, you're going to sling something, and you're going to brain somebody, and they're going to get in the ring and just kick the living shit out of you. And you're not going to be able to do a goddamn thing about it. And if it's somebody with any balls, which it would have to be in AEW to do that, there's nobody else going to be able to stop him either. So just watch your P's and Q's and be lucky to even be there, you little fucking prick. It's my message to Dwarf Dong Sucker. What'd you think of all of this?
Great match. Dax, I've been saying it forever, one of the best guys in the ring in the entire business. Was exactly what Jungle Boy needed. I wish they would get him away from Luchasaurus and Marco Stunt, and I wish they would have him do something in a singles division. I wish FTR would be used better. Really enjoyed the match. I noticed what you did with the chair in the post-match. Why is Marco Stunt running out there with that chair? Why doesn't someone just kick him in the fucking face? It wouldn't be hard. He's very small. Wasn't crazy about the post-match. Didn't mind the cutting of the horns as much as you did. Although I recognize it's silly.
Just buy another fucking mask.
But I thought it was really good. Everyone thought it was. I mean, there's no way anyone watched that segment and didn't think it was excellent, but also realize that this is the kind of thing they could be doing. Not everything needs to be flips and kickouts. It could be a match that tells a story that makes sense.
that's the thing, is that nobody says anything bad about it, but they're sitting there looking at something that is completely different than what they normally present. It's what this is supposed to be and the way it's supposed to be performed, and they still can't get it. Anyway, briefly, Team Taz was in the parking lot where I guess they set up the merchandise table now outside, even in 40-degree weather in Florida. And they beat up the merchandise guys and tore up the gimmick table. And boy, it looked good if it was in any way plausible and could actually happen ever. Why couldn't they just tear up the merchandise stand? I would have believed that. We're going to tear these guys up just like we're tearing up their shit and causing a problem. But when they commit physical assault and aggravated assault and mayhem on employees, it's phony. Dr. Britt Baker wrestled somebody. Less said about that, the better. Their main event of the evening is everything that is wrong with whatever the fuck it is that they're doing, and could have easily been taken care of if anybody had control over this fucking thing. But there's a lot of moving parts. For whatever reason, just because they were a thing in Japan 5 years ago and their limited fan base loves it, they thought it would be great to have Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson team up with the Young Bucks. How stupid was that? They even, during the promo in the back, did you see they had to have the Bucks actually stand closer to the camera so they wouldn't look minute standing next to these two fucking guys? It looks like two fucking guys that just got paroled and they're middle school children that came to fucking pick them up to take them out of prison. Could the Bucks look any worse than to be standing next to these two fucking behemoths? Actually, Anderson's not even a behemoth. He's just a grown man, so he looks like one here. And they did a promo, Gallows and Anderson. They at least have some personality. And they look like something. The Bucks don't have either. Then Twinkle Toes floated in and stopped the energy. And then Callis comes in and now his face is twice as hurt as last week. And everybody's pissed at each other. And then the Bucks enter the ring. You know how I knew that the Bucks were not going to kick ass in this match, Brian? Because they came in the ring chewing bubble gum and even blowing bubbles. And Bubbles is pissed about it.
They always do. They're always chewing gum.
Well, they certainly didn't come to kick ass because they didn't run out of bubble gum. Blowing fucking bubbles in the main event of a television. All right. And then the Dork Order comes out, 7 guys and 1 girl. And I think that they probably should have waited for more of their guys to show up to make it even. I felt bad for Carl Anderson. He had to dignify an outlaw fuckwit like Pizzeria Uno working with him on national TV. And Gallows got on his knees to mock Silver. I could see where Silver's talented, and he's a jacked up little fella. He's got some beef to him. He's just short. But the Impact guys here know more about how to work with a guy at a proper level than anybody in AEW. He didn't just fucking get a finger lock with Silver and get taken to his knees. He got down on his knees to begin with and mocked the guy, and then the guy could fucking kick. Whatever the fuck. I like Gallows and Anderson as a team. You know what I think about Balding and Pieface, and they did all their normal tricks. And then the 4 of them did a quadruple team thing while the referee stared at it. I don't understand. The evil cult team, the Dark Order, are the baby faces, but the baby faces are the heels and the faces at the same time because the Bucks can't decide which ones they want to be. And then they started doing a lot of shit back and forth and went to the break. And they came back from the break. And I think this is a new indoor record. Within 3 seconds of coming back from the commercial break, somebody had done a backflip. And then everybody but 2 guys were on the floor, and Silver beat everybody up. And Balding Twink went to kick Pizzeria Uno. I'm not making this one up. I bet you saw this. Jackson goes to kick Uno. Uno catches Jackson's foot and hands it to the referee to hold so Uno can give the fucking guy a neck breaker. Then Pieface came in and Northern Light suplexed fat-ass Uno and John Silver at the same time. Like that could be in any way done. Silver, who just beat up everybody at the same time, and then this fucking little grade school child fucking takes him and fat-ass over together. They hit Matt Jackson at one point with a series of 5 strikes and moves without even letting him take a bump. And then they hit a double team off the top on him. And that was done by 3 or 4 different guys, and it was a 2 count. And then Balding Buck did some more dives. Why don't they just show reruns, Brian? They could just rerun this show. It's the same match every week. They could save a lot of money. Everybody did everything with no tags. The referee did nothing about it. This was the phoniest looking Meltzer driver in history by the Hardley Boys. And that was it. Boom. And then Matt did a promo where he gave some convoluted stipulations for the battle royal they've got coming up, where they might win and get to pick their opponents. But we're not sure because he didn't finish because Felix ran in the ring 1 against 4. He just runs in the ring and by himself and he gets his shit kicked. And then Moxley comes in and makes a save. But then Twinkle Toes comes in, but Moxley drops him. And they left Gallows and Anderson as big as all these guys together on the floor selling. And Olivier's on his face in the middle of the ring. And Moxley, why are all these people mad at each other?
Because of bad booking.
That's what I saw.
Because of bad booking. That's why they're all mad at each other.
That's what I saw. There was great stuff, and then there was shitty stuff.
Yeah. I can't really add too much to that. I mean, I think the whole booking with Omega, with Callis, and the Good Brothers, and the Young Bucks has been really poor. A few weeks ago, didn't the Young Bucks get burned where they thought they were going to team up with Kenny, and instead the Good Brothers came out? But somehow now they're all teaming up again.
Well, but they're still bickering.
They're still bickering. Boy, that Good Brothers promo backstage. I hadn't seen too many of their promos, and I hope I don't see too many more. Not very good. But, look, we got Jungle Boy and Dax.
Yeah.
They did it. You know, the biggest disappointment about the whole Cody thing was no Jade Cargill. She could have made that at least a funny segment. Yes.
You were waiting for her to come out.
I was.
That would have been a corny award right there.
Oh, if she would have just confronted Arn or just whispered something to Cody. Just anything. Anything she does is fantastic. But
hey, I think they need to find wherever Linda Miles is and do the fucking evil twin deal.
Oof, I wouldn't wish that on anyone, even AEW.
I guarantee you, when we see Jade Cargill, if she's as good as Linda Miles is, I'll admit I was wrong. I got a feeling she's going to be spectacularly bad.
What do you think will be the worst thing? Just the basics, like the locking up and trying to go for a headlock? Or do you think she'll try some high spots and not be able to do it? I mean, she is an athlete, so I'm guessing she has a leapfrog down, maybe even a drop kick. And
no, I'm thinking it's going to be something that she performs that's incredibly athletic and totally at the wrong time and probably even in the wrong direction. That's what I'm betting on.
With that said, I bet you she's
like that.
I was going to say, I bet you she's better in the ring than fucking Brandy.
Well, I was about to say it won't be like that match when Charmel had poor Charmel with that goof from that reality show, that Jenna Maraska or whatever, where she started. Wasn't that the one where she started running the ropes, but ran to the wrong direction of ropes to come off and hit where the girl was standing or whatever? I don't fucking know. But yeah, Jane Cargill could have picked that segment up, but poor Arn trying to explain, as you could see, go back and watch it and you'll see it in his eyes. He's in the middle of it and he's like, I can't make this make sense. There's no reason for any of this to go on.
I have pulled up Jade Cargill's Wikipedia page to give you a little bit of information about Jade.
All right.
Jade Cargill, born June 3rd, 1992, is an American professional wrestler and fitness model signed to All Elite Wrestling. She was born in Vero Beach. We don't need to hear about her school background. She played basketball,
She's 30 already, and she's a rookie. That's always a good sign.
She's 28, but she played basketball and was named to the Athletic Sun preseason first team in her senior year. She also has a certified master's in child psychology, which will probably come in handy in AEW. Her training
writes itself.
Her training, she attended in April of 2019 a tryout at the WWE Performance Center. Subsequently, she began training at AR Fox's WWA4 Academy, taking advice from Mark Henry, who Cargill described as her mentor. She went to train at Heath Miller and Richard Borger's face-to-face wrestling school. She then trained at QT Marshall's Nightmare Factory, and then it goes into her AEW stuff and her...
But she started in 2019. She's probably not had a match in front of people.
No, and she's gone to 3 different schools.
Well, okay, but starting in a year and a half ago while a pandemic's going on. They did the same thing to Mark, as you'll recall. They put Mark Henry in the ring when he'd never had a match in front of people. He was on a pay-per-view against Jerry Lawler, but it was against Jerry Lawler, and it worked. And then he had to actually go train and go to school and didn't have another match for a year and a half. But I don't think they should put this girl in her first match in front of people on pay-per-view with Shaquille O'Neal. That's just my... But hey, who am I, right?
What if she proves you wrong? What if she goes in there and it's like, holy cow, like Ronda Rousey's debut, like just amazing.
Then I will fucking die laughing and put her over, and you'll crow about it, and I'll never hear the end of it, and her promos will still suck. That's what'll happen.
But they're the best.
All right,
anyway.
Suck.
Yes.
Our programming. I got a pinball repairman coming over here shortly. Our programming this coming week, the drive-through will be a day late on purpose because we are reviewing and critiquing the Royal Rumble. So that's going to be this coming Tuesday, the 2nd of February. Is that correct?
I believe so. That is correct.
I believe so. And then this coming week, next week, the Experience supposedly will be out on Friday if the Arcadian Vanguard Empire has not been burned to the ground by that insidious Kippelman.
He's not that insidious.
Well, he's partially insidious. So that's our schedule, and we're going to stick to it. Do you have any closing thoughts for the folks this week, Brian?
We'll see you on Tuesday for the Royal Rumble review, maybe some songs and questions, and who knows what else.
That's right, songs and questions and who knows what, because we like to entertain our audience, folks. And until then, in the meantime and in between time, until you have a malfunction at the junction, it's going to be a slobber knocker and a stem winder. Thank you. Fuck you. Bye-bye, everybody.